Welcome. This is our last session for the TDLR Summits. On screen, you'll see right now the poll everywhere, three options to log on. I would suggest option 1 and 2 if you have an Android, option 3 for anybody, but it seems like the option 3 is not working on Androids. What we like to do is the poll everywhere, we have it open for questions. And for the folks up here in the audience, we're not going to take questions until the very end. If you have questions throughout the presentation, just ask them on that poll everywhere. We're going to go at the end and go through all of those questions like we did this morning. And then that would be, seems like through all the cities we went to, this is like the most effective way to capture everybody's questions and to have it and grouped together. So this afternoon, again today, I'm Ray Pizarro, Director for the Education Examination Division. We're going to talk to you all today about the Barber and Cosmetology merger of what has transpired. We have about 75 different slides. No need to take pictures of the slides. We will provide those slides to everyone on the website. All of the handouts that the folks are getting here face to face, those handouts will be and are available on the website as well. They're just informational things that we have for you. There's going to be a bunch of presenters here coming up throughout the day, that afternoon, and you're going to hear a lot about what's happening. They're going to talk to you about changes with establishments, changes with schools. And just what I want you all to know and take from this one very thing, if there's only one thing you take home today, I want you all to know that this merger is not making a barber a cosmetologist or not making a cosmetologist a barber. Barbers will still be barbers and cosmetologists will still be cosmetologists. That does not change. You'll hear that through the presentation. All of these changes are happening on the back end. These are administrative and operational changes for the agency. You ask why, right? Well, you're going to hear also presenters, and Dee Dee will touch on it, and David, I think, say again?
He's behind you.
Oh, he's behind me? Oh, okay. Dee Dee and David's going to jump on it, and you're going to hear the term, the Texas sunset. You're going to hear a bill called HB 1560. That is a body of individuals and the bill of what impacted TDLR. That bill passed, became law, and the law says these are the things you need to do to make those changes happen. And the sunset body is basically saying, TDLR, you need to work more efficiently. We don't think you're working as efficiently because these are the things we found that are not as efficient. You're going to hear Eric talk about inspection process on how they're going to be doing things more efficiently. We as an agency need to work more efficiently. Part of that efficiency is to work under one set of rules and one set of laws. But there are some common practices here between cosmetology and barbers. Before, you would have Eric's team go out to inspect, let's say, a salon, a shop, or a school, and they'll have to remember, wait a minute, is it barbers have to sweep up after every client, or is it cosmetologists have to go look at the rule? Oh yeah, wait, it applies to this group, but it doesn't apply to this group. So there's a lot of things like that doesn't make sense why they're different in one or the other. But I want you to know the general things that are changing does not change the scope of practice of what you do as an individual behind a chair day after day. Okay, is that one thing you take away? I want you to know that. To squash those rumors, no, you're going to hear barbers are the only ones that can shave with the straight razor. You'll hear that today. Can a cosmetologist do it? Unless they go to school and become a barber, right? So just know that. So without further ado, I'm gonna, also with us face to face today is one of our advisory board members, Ledietrich Leonard. He holds a Class A barber. Thank you. He holds a Class A barber. Remember, before there were two advisory boards. There was a barber advisory board, cosmetology advisory board. When this law bill became into effect, we as an agency had to get rid of those two boards and get one board. Now it's called the Barber and Cosmetology Advisory Board, where you'll hear Derek talk about they presented the rules to the advisory board. That's the board he's talking about. The board consists of cosmetologists, school owners, barbers, all of that good stuff. Okay, but now, and without further ado, I'm going to introduce our Deputy Executive Director for the department, Mr. David Gonzalez.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Y'all, thank y'all. Welcome, good afternoon. Appreciate y'all making the time for us. We can throw a party, we can have people hopefully be interested in what our agency, but it doesn't work unless you show up. And so thank you for showing up. Thank you for taking interest in your industry. We have the similar interest. We want to make sure that we're conveying as much information as possible so that you're aware of some of the changes that are coming along. As Ray said, I'm the Deputy Executive Director of the agency. I've been here for 27 years. When the Bar-Cos programs got transferred, I was here, so I know some of the pains and challenges we've had along the way in making things work. Do I point this way to make it work?
Oh,
No.
It just takes a small delay.
There's a delay.
Yeah, but I should have read it.
it should have been.
So maybe it's the battery. So if you're familiar with our agency, we've been doing this for a little while. Every 2 years, we have strategic planning. We want to know from the public what we're doing right, if there's things we can improve upon. It also helps us during the legislative session, which also happens every 2 years, but on different year cycles. Part of our strategic plan when we went and traveled the state was to make sure everybody knew what one of our main goals was, which is to fully implement the recommendations from our sunset review process and the resulting sunset bill called House Bill 1560 that came from the last 87th legislature. See if I can get it to work. Thank you, ma'am. So what is the Sunset Commission? Does anybody know? Show of hand. Anybody already know what a Sunset Commission is? Dee Dee knows. You've heard of the Sunset Commission in the state of Texas, and there's a few other states that have it. There's an entity that looks at our agencies to make sure that we're doing our job for the people that we serve. If we just keep working here and we don't really care about our job and we're doing a bad job, these guys are the ones that tell us, hey, you're doing a bad job. So we get reviewed on a regular basis. It is a 5 representative and 5 senator group, 2 public members that are anointed by the Speaker of the House and by the Lieutenant Governor. These are legislators, so lawmakers that are put together on a group that make decisions about our agency. They have staff that are dedicated to them, an executive director, some program specialists and research types. They embed with our agency and they find out everything we do. They get into our licensing systems. They get into our IT systems. They look at how we do examinations. They're looking to see if we're doing things inefficiently, as Ray said earlier. If there's things that we can do better, maybe some things need to be combined. Well, that's what they did. And that's why we're here today. This started about 3 years ago. So it's not overnight. This just didn't happen this past legislative session. It started about 3 years ago when they had us do our own self-assessment. They did a report. The public was able to review that report and give their input on what they thought should be changed at TDLR, if there's things that we could do better. At the end of the day, that finalized report goes before this legislative committee, and they make decisions on what the final report's going to look like into a bill. They put those recommendations into a bill. Now, mind you, TDLR is not just barber and cosmetology programs. We have lots of programs. So that bill ended up being pretty large. But the main thing that y'all need to know about is one of the biggest points. There are some other ones under Bar-Cos, but if you go to the Texas Sunset Commission's website and you read what they told us to do under Barber and Cosmetology, it specifically said, consolidate the barber and cosmetology programs into one. So that's what we're doing here today. It's not just because I woke up today and said, hey, let's just stick this together. Ray's not just trying to make everything easier for himself. And most of these changes really are on our end, on the back end, with our laws, rules, and the computer systems. But it's important that you know that that's how that works, because if it comes up again, y'all will be able to participate in that process. Now, thankfully, the Sunset Commission thought we were doing a good enough job that the sunset's not going to see us again until 12 years from now. So we're going to be continued in existence for 12 years. But every 2 years, in fact, this is another legislative year coming up, y'all can talk to legislators and tell them what y'all think needs to be done or what needs to be done better. It's a good thing. That's all I wanted to share with you. Just really appreciate y'all making the time. This is the last summit presentation that we're doing. Our staff have traveled the state, and I really applaud their efforts because they've worked hard to empathize and be out there with y'all to find out what's going on. So just really appreciate the time y'all are taking and thankful for my staff. And with no further ado, I'll introduce Ms. Dee Dee McEachern from our licensing division We'll take it from here.
Thank you.
The-
Once
It's working. The clicker makes.
It's not working, okay.
We'll change it. This.
Look at it, it moved.
Well, I
Okay,
did
you
it.
can change it. Okay, so I don't need to hold this, I'll just be throwing it at somebody else. So what I want to talk to y'all about is how we got here and how we can go about making changes to what we got here, okay? I want to take you back to Saturday mornings in your youth, or your children's youth, sorry. To Schoolhouse Rock. I'm just a bill. Way back when, there's a song that talks about how bills move it talks about the US legislature, but it works the exact same way for the Texas legislature. So in 2021, the Sunset Commission wrote this bill. That bill ended up being 225 pages about TDLR, very long. Article 3 just deals with Barber and Cosmetology. So if you want to look at the bill, you can search for the word Barber and you'll find it like that. But it made a lot of recommendations, and our House Bill 1560 turns most of those into law. It talks about Barber and Cosmetology overlapping as well. Okay, next slide, please. So what's the difference between a law and a rule? Go ahead. So the law determines the basic structure of something. It is like the framework of a house. It's going to determine your number of stories. It's going to determine number of rooms, window placement, stuff like that in a house. That's what the law is going to do. When a law is written, it can only be passed by the legislature and it can only be changed by the legislature. They meet every 2 years. Just like this is, after a house is finished, those elements can be changed, but it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. A rule is like the interior design of a house. It's what TDLR does to help implement those changes, to help finish them off. So in this analogy, paint color would be a rule, floor material would be a rule. Things that are easier to change, still a pain, but things that are easier to change and you've got more flexibility with it. Changes to TDLR rules will go first through your advisory board and then through our commission to enact a rule. With House Bill 1560, what they basically did to extend this analogy is they took a duplex, they tore down that wall in the middle, and then made a single family home. And it's our job to help y'all live and work together as a blended family. And that's all I've got.
Works on? Do it again.
You were slightly short, so. I'm sorry. Oh, the sun is there. You don't like it? Oh.
Sorry. I didn't know.
Blame it on Ray.
We do that all the time.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rebecca Arbas. I'm with TDLR's Education and Examination Division. I'm one of the leads for that division. What I'm going to be covering this morning is what we've done so far since the HB 1560 was passed. One of the things that I'd like to give everyone here and at home an idea of, how this is all working out for us on our end. So prior to HB 1560 passing, Barbering and Cosmetology was under the purview of 5 separate laws and rules, 5 separate chapters. So we had to look at 5 separate chapters on enforcement actions, 5 separate chapters on examination items. So your students, or even you when you had to study for your exam, had to look over 5 separate laws and rules. Now it's under 1 set of laws and 1 set of rules. Barbers, you're still going to be Class A barbers. Operators, you're still going to be operators. They're not going to commingle. It's still 2 separate licenses. Barbers are the only ones that can shave with a straight razor. And our cosmetology operators, you can do the eyelash extensions. So I just kind of wanted to, you'll hear that common theme throughout this morning, or this afternoon, excuse me. But I just kind of wanted to share that to give you guys a little more background. Am I going in the wrong direction? So what have we done so far? One of the things we have done is the deregulation of the wig specialist license. So that you no longer need a license to offer wig services. You can still offer wig services, they're just no longer regulated by TDLR. The instructor license. We are very empathetic. We understand that this is, hurt you at your core. We are now, we're in the process of helping you navigate what it's going to look like, but it does not mean that you're not amazing educators. You still have your identity. You are still who you are. Just because that license has now been deregulated does not mean you're not still outstanding educators. I've said earlier this morning, you're some of the best educators in the nation. You help your students become successful behind the chair. That does not change. So as far as the course goes, you can create, those of you that are course or school owners, you can create a teacher's training course because you still want to mold the next generation of educators. You still want them to make sure that they can be successful teaching in the classroom. You want to give them that experience. It does not count against your 25-to-1 student ratio. So you'll still have your 25 students, and then you can bring in someone that you'd like to mentor as your teaching assistant, just as long as they hold the corresponding license. So if you're bringing them in and you're teaching an operator course, they must be a licensed cosmetology operator. Barbers, Class A barber course, the same thing. When you offer these courses and you're telling them, I'd like to give you some type of prep to be prepared to be in a classroom, you just can't advertise that they're going to get any type of TDLR credit because we no longer regulate that. You can tell them, hey, I'm just providing this to help you be more successful, so that you can give them a certificate that says, hey, you've completed it, but it will not be for any hours with TDLR or any type of licensure with TDLR. But you can create these courses. Milady still has their textbooks, I believe, maybe even Pivot Point might, and you can also create a curriculum yourself on what you feel makes a good educator. And now for school owners and even those that are in the high school or community college sectors, what you can do now is you can set the standards on who you want to be who do you want to employ as educators. So for school owners, it's your prerogative. You're going to set those up. You're going to see, what kind of experience, what kind of license they hold. They have to be sure to teach what they hold the license for. You want to have them had any experience. How long do you want them to have that experience? You all know, and there are folks out there, whether they're teaching in a regular classroom or in the field of barbering or cosmetology, those that have instructor licenses that maybe, you feel one way or another on whether or not they should hold the license. This gives you the opportunity. You may find someone, and some folks laughed at it earlier, but you may find someone that has just recently graduated, but you see something in them that would make them a great educator. You can bring them in immediately, fresh out of, grabbing their operator or barber or even specialty license. There's always those students that rise to the top that want to offer that, that helping hand to their fellow students, and they may make great educators. And that's your prerogative, again, to set up how you want them to come into your school. As I spoke just a minute ago about the training classes. Again, you can offer these training courses for them. You just can't tell them it's going to be for any type of certification. There's no examination through TDLR. There's no license through TDLR. If you set that expectation at the beginning, everything will be fine. And that is all that I have for you today. Again, thank you so much for everybody tuning in, and those of you here. I'm going to bring up the licensing manager, Ms. Yvonne Lopez.
Hi, good afternoon. How are y'all doing? Did y'all get out of the rain, stay out of the rain? Hopefully everyone had a safe drive. All right. So my name is Yvonne. I am the licensing manager. My team is the one that receives your applications, your renewals, transcript reviews, and we get those processed so that you all can get licensed, your students can get licensed. So what's new for you all? Effective January 1st of this coming year, 2023, all businesses, shops, salons, schools, all businesses must post a human trafficking sign. This is not new for the cosmetology shops or cosmetology schools. The one thing that is new about the sign, though, is that the human trafficking information is in 5 different languages. It was previously in just 3. This is a completely new requirement for barbershops and barber schools where this sign will have to be posted. There is a printable PDF available on our website. So just visit our website, www.tdlr.texas.gov. Click on license types, go to your respective license type, and look under forms, and you'll find that PDF there. There's also a human trafficking sign included in the packet that was handed to you. This is just an example of what the human trafficking sign will look like. The sign does not have to be in color when it's posted. It can be printed on just regular black and white paper. You can blow it up if you want, but it just needs to be posted in your shop or school. Do we have any instructors here? Okay, got it. About half of you. So as you're aware, the instructor license was eliminated this last session. On September 1st, we began replacing your instructor licenses. Okay, so all that we're doing is we're dropping off that instructor classification. So if you previously, let's say you're an operator instructor today, when you go in to renew your license, that instructor title will drop off and you will receive an operator license. If you currently hold an operator license, I know some of you may have questions about renewal. You'll renew whichever license has the later date. So if your instructor license expires today and your operator license does not expire until next year, you don't have to worry about renewing that instructor license because that operator license is what you're going to renew. If you have not held what we're referring to as the underlying license, then you will receive a new license and a new license number. Again, if you had the underlying license before, you will keep that underlying license number. This demonstrates the current instructor licenses that are available. The specialty, we just kind of lumped them all under one, but they're still going to have the separate categories. So if you have a manicure instructor license, you will get your manicure license. It's just not going to have that instructor designation on it. The Class A barber instructor will receive the Class A barber license, and the operator instructor will receive the operator license. Do you lose the hours that you obtained in the instructor course? No, you don't. You don't lose any of your hours that are on file with TDLR. We'll keep those hours on record. We will also retain information about your instructor license if you hold one now. So you can request a license verification or a certified transcript of hours. This will contain all of the information when your instructor license was issued, when it expired, and if you ever had that license revoked. For the certified transcript of hours, this is what it'll look like. This is just an example. It'll have your name. If you took multiple courses, so if you hold like all the licenses that we have, all of those courses that you took here in Texas will be reflected on your transcript of hours. The enrollment dates for each license type that you took or course type that you took, the number of hours that you took in each school that you attended. As you'll hear throughout this entire presentation, really it's the laws and rules. Aside from the instructor licenses being deregulated and the WIG license be regulated, and then the additional services that can be offered by shops and schools now, really it's just the law and it's just the rules that have been combined. So when you hear the word merge, it's been that we have taken those 5 laws and rules and made them one law and one set of rules. Okay, as Rebecca described earlier, all of these license types still exist. So the Class A barber still exists, the operator still exists, and all of your specialty licenses still exist. Okay. So this is a question that I'm hoping you all know the answer to now. Did the Class A barber license and cosmetology operator license merge into one? What is the answer?
No.
No, you're correct. We know that there's been a lot of rumors about that being the case. That is not the case. So like Ray said earlier, if you walk away today with nothing else, remember, they're still separate licenses. The Class A barber is still the only license type allowed to shave, and the cosmetology operator may do eyelash extensions. Of course, the esthetician can do the extensions, and the eyelash extension specialist can still do the eyelash extensions. Barbers, sorry, y'all don't get that opportunity to put on eyelashes. I know y'all wanted to beautify your men and women clients, but y'all can't do that. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you all again for being here. We really appreciate it. Next up is Derek Burkholder.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Derek Burkhalter. I'm an assistant general counsel for TDLR, and I'm the one assigned to the Barbering and Cosmetology program. So don't judge me by my COVID hair. I actually am a real attorney. Actually got that question a couple of times on the road. So I'm here to talk about the rulemaking process and where we currently stand in the rules. So as everyone said, the statutes are what the legislature give us to provide the framework, and then the agency, the department, has to go in and fill in the details with rules. And so what House Bill 1560 did was it took, in the occupations code, our statutes before we had for barbers, chapter 1601, for cosmetologists, 1602. So HB 1560 repealed those two chapters and put everything into chapter 1603 for both professions. So that's the statute we have to work with now. For our rules, we're doing a similar thing. We previously had chapter 82 for barbers and 83 for cosmetologists, and we are combining them into chapter 83 together. And so that's the rulemaking effort that we're currently involved in. Now, anytime an agency for the state makes rules, the law dictates the process that we have to follow. And the idea is that the public should have plenty of notice and opportunity to comment and participate. And so this is a chart that kind of shows what that process looks like at TDLR. So this chart starts in the top left and it kind of snakes around to the middle and ends up at the bottom right. So let's just talk about the first box at the top, the rule idea and drafting. So here the rule idea comes from the legislation. We're trying to implement HB 1560. And so we put together a draft of what we thought would accomplish that. And then the next box, we have to put that draft through internal review and analysis. We have staff members who specialize in financials, and their job is to make sure that there's no financial burden that we're putting on people unnecessarily. So it goes through that filter, and then we have to send the draft and the analysis to the governor's office, and they have a little division that takes a look at the rules and just looks for any red flags that might be a problem. And then we get past that filter, and we get to the first blue box here, which is the first advisory board meeting. So this was the meeting that took place on August 19th, where we kind of presented the first draft to the advisory board and explained a little bit about what it did. They voted to go ahead and publish that to the public so the public could see it. And so at that point, we would then file it so it can be published in what's called the Texas Register. And this is a weekly publication by the state that gives notice of all kinds of agency actions like public meetings and proposed rules and things like that. And so that publication came out in the September 23rd edition. And that publication triggers a 30-day public comment period, and during which anyone can write in and tell us how they feel about the rules, what their thoughts are, suggest changes. We received a lot of good comments from individuals, from organizations. And so, we reviewed those public comments in detail, and we actually saw merit to some of them. Some of them were kind of saying the same things. And so we took the public comments back down to the blue box to the second advisory board meeting. And this was the meeting that took place on October 31st. And if you haven't had a chance to watch that meeting, I highly encourage you to go back and watch it. You can watch it on YouTube. But we actually walked through the comments, the more numerous comments, what they were focusing on. There's a lengthy discussion by the advisory board, and they actually made some revisions to the rule text on the spot. And at the end of the meeting, they voted to recommend that the commission adopt that revised version. So if you want to see that revised version, you have to go watch the meeting. And then we're gonna take all of that to the commission, because remember, the advisory board is just advisory. The rules aren't actually officially adopted until the commission adopts them. Now, the commission is our governing body. They're basically our head bosses. There's 7 people appointed by the governor, and they make the important decisions for the agency. So that meeting will occur on December 6th. You can go to our website to find out how to submit written comments to the commissioners before the meeting. And you can also sign up to speak, to give a public comment at the meeting. They'll give you 3 minutes to talk about whatever you want to say. So December 6th, that will be the big meeting. If the commission adopts the rules at that meeting, we would then file a notice in the Texas Register so the public knows that this is coming. And then our planned effective date for the rules is January 1st. Now, January 1st date is not when everything takes effect. It's when, the standardized health and safety standards and things like that will take effect. But the actual change in the license types and things like that do not take effect until September 1st, 2023. And the curriculum changes for schools take effect a month earlier on August 1st to give them time to adjust their curriculum for the fall semester. So that's where we're at right now. We're kind of in the home stretch. Again, the big meeting is the commission meeting on December 6th. So definitely tune in for that. So we at TDLR understand that this is, it's kind of hard to read these proposed rules and really understand what's going on and how it affects you. So what we've tried to do is make an interactive sort of online guide on our website. And hopefully we can show you what that looks like here. We had a little trouble this morning, but hopefully it'll work. Just bear with us a little longer. Okay, well, if we can't get it pulled up, so what you would see if we had is you just go to our TDLR homepage. So from the homepage, you would pick either barbering or cosmetology. We still have them separated on the website. If you scroll down a little bit to news and updates, you'll see this heading Licensee Guide to House Bill 1560 Changes. There's a blue link within that, and you click that and you get to this page, which is a guide to the changes. You see the section, what does this mean for me? You can choose from this drop-down menu, actually pick your current license type, and it will show. So for here, let's choose cosmetology operator first, and then hit the go button. And then below, you'll see it produces the information for that license type. So you can see these are the services that this license is allowed to provide. Scrolling down a little bit further, we'll show you a couple of bullet points as to how this license type is affected by the proposed rules. And what you'll actually see, there's only a couple of bullet points here. When you actually go to your license type, you'll see that there are actually very few effects to the individual licenses. Most of the changes that are taking place here are all on the department side, things that we have to do differently to administer these programs together. But as far as the individual licensees, there are very few actual changes. So if we went to the barber technician or Class A barber.
I'm trying to get that, it just doesn't want to let me, there it goes.
Okay. So this is the Class A barber information, similar information. So you can do that for each license type, for the establishments, for the schools, whatever it is you're interested in. Hopefully that will give you just kind of a brief summary of how the changes affect you. Okay, so that's the end of my piece for today. And so next I'm gonna pass you on to our Director of Field Inspections, the one and only Mr. Eric Dover.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Good. Thank y'all for being here. I really appreciate it. And thank you, everybody, for joining us online. I'm going to walk through two subjects today. The first is risk-based inspections, and the second is e-inspections or electronic inspections. Cool. So you've heard about House Bill 1560. This was TDLR's sunset bill that the legislature passed. As part of the change, they directed the agency to conduct risk-based inspections. For many years, you may be familiar, inspectors have come out to conduct inspections for full-fledged barbering and cosmetology shops and salons, typically on a 4-year cycle, for specialty shops every 2 years, and for schools twice a year. So the legislature has put in statute key things that we have to consider. And the focus is really on the compliance history of the individual business. So we need to determine whether a license has previously violated a law, rule, or order, and how many times they have done so. And that criteria is set out for us in statute. And then kindly, the legislature gave us some flexibility to consider other factors, right? Other risk factors that we determine are appropriate. So we began conducting risk-based inspections in the barbering and cosmetology program in September. And we are looking at a number of factors to determine the individual risk associated with a particular business or school. First is recidivism. A recidivist is somebody who has violated a law, rule, or order of the commission or the agency multiple times in the last few fiscal years, right? So that's getting to that legislative charge. We're also looking at how did you do during your last inspection? So many of you have been inspected, and normally we provide you with a handwritten proof of inspection form with some violations or no violations. And there are basically 3 outcomes, right? The first outcome and the desirable outcome is no corrections needed, no violations. So there's no additional risk factor, right, if you have a good last inspection result. However, you may have some corrections needed violations. Those are violations that you need to correct, but we don't refer over to the enforcement division. And then there are the direct to enforcement violations, right? Those are the serious violations that we write up, send to the enforcement division, and then they contact you. In some cases, we're also able to look back at beyond the last inspection and look at any violation history for the last 3 years. And we also look at when your business or school was last inspected, right? If the business has not been seen in a while, then we're going to prioritize seeing that business. So the second item I'll talk to you about today is called e-inspections. We were very fortunate to work with the Texas Department of Information Resources and Microsoft to develop an electronic inspections process. Those of you that have been inspected know that you typically receive a carbon copy, right, of your proof of inspection report. It's handwritten, it can be difficult to read sometimes. And the way that the violations are written out is not standardized, right? So some inspectors may use shorter descriptions, some may use longer descriptions. So we have developed this now. You'll be receiving your inspection results via email, and it'll be in a printed PDF format, and should be very easy to take a look at and make sure that you know what you need to do to get back into compliance. So we'll be sending that to you via email. Of course, it has to be displayed in accordance with the laws and rules. And it's my sincere hope that it will be easier for you to read and to take corrective actions that are needed. Those will be described on the form. So please be sure that you have a current email address on file. And this is the address that you can go to update it. We're going to send you the proof of inspection form, and it's going to provide some instructions, right? So how long do y'all have to make corrections that we have identified? Anybody want to take a guess how many days? Ding, ding, ding. Gold star right over here, 10 days. So you have 10 days to make the corrections and then 30 days to acknowledge, right? And so when you get the email, you'll be able to reply directly to the email and acknowledge. You can add attachments, photos, documents, anything that might be particular to whatever violation you had, right? We'll be looking at that. One of the things that the legislature said is that we were not doing a good job as an agency on following up to ensure that violations that had been committed had been remedied. So we're going to do that. So that concludes my presentation. One last thing I did want to say. So of course, please go out and update your email address. But if you don't stress. When the inspector comes out, he or she can get an email for you at that time. You'll just need to acknowledge that we have that you're authorizing us to use that email for business purposes. Thanks so much.
Hey guys, so we're gonna be moving a little bit to talking about establishments, changes with salons and shops. I'm looking at some of the questions coming in through Poll Everywhere. Great job. Keep sending them in. A lot of those questions, you'll hear some of these presenters, they will be answering some of those concerns you have. And we'll, again, at the end, just go over the questions just for everyone's sake to hear them, and we'll address those as well. So TDLR, in a lot of our businesses, we have subject matter experts in our industry. And in this case, we have Sean. Sean has been a barber for 38 years. And we have Angela, who's been an instructor for 15 years. We rely on them, just like we rely on our advisory board to give us answers and what the industry's thinking, and can you do this? I don't know how to shave. It's like, so Sean, is it this way, that way? What do you do? And he knows what that means and how, and guides our attorney over here to kind of write those words in plain talk so that it's understandable to everyone. So they're a big part of this industry, and they're here to help you guys, and they're gonna have some information to share with you. So Angela, Sean.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you doing today? Good. I'm Angela Sanders. I'm the cosmetology program specialist, and Sean and I will be covering the changes as they pertain to the establishments. Now, the first change for our establishments that I'll discuss with you is effective January 1st, 2023. A separate barbershop and cosmetology salon license will no longer be required to offer both barbering and cosmetology services. So you have one establishment license, you can offer both cosmetology and barbering services. Now, January 1st, for example, if you have if your business is licensed as a barbershop, January 1st, you can bring in cosmetologists to also offer their cosmetology services if you choose to, and vice versa. If you have a beauty salon license, you can begin to bring in barbers to offer services. Now, I want to point out that this is an option. This is not a requirement. By no means are we saying you have to start offering both services. No, that's not what we're saying at all. We just want to give this option, make it a little easier for those that currently maybe have to worry about two separate licenses, the barbershop license and the cosmetology salon license. So we're just trying to make it a little bit easier on those businesses. Now, what services can be offered under the one establishment license at this time, come January 1st? All barber and cosmetology services. You've got your shaving, your haircuts, color, pedicures, manicures, hair removal, aesthetics, hair weaving, as well as eyelash extensions. Now, of course, still your cosmetologist cannot shave with a straight razor. Only barbers can. And still, your barbers cannot do eyelash extensions. So just make sure whoever's working in the establishment is appropriately licensed to perform the services that they're offering. Okay? Our specialty salons, they will continue to operate the same. Of course, whatever you're licensed for as a specialty salon, that's what you'll be able to offer as far as services go. Okay, new sanitation rule postings. This is also effective January 1st, 2023. All establishments will be required to post the combined sanitation rules at that time. Okay, now, is this a new requirement? Well, yes and no. And I say that because, of course, barbers, you all know this has been a requirement already for barbershops, barber schools, for any barber establishment. You already have had to post sanitation rules. Cosmetology establishments, this is new for cosmetologists. So, in lieu of posting these rules, actually posting them, you can also have your law and rule book available, and that'll suffice for the posting as well. If you choose to print up the sanitation rules, the postings, these can be found on our website. So you can download and print up the sanitation rules from there. And again, as I said, as an alternative, you can also have the rule book available. Which brings us to the question, when will the new law and rule book be available? We're shooting for the fall of 2023, having the new law and rule books available. Once the new Barber and Cosmetology law and rule books become available, they will be sent out upon renewal of your licenses, okay? So at this point in the presentation, our barber program specialist, Sean O'Neill, will continue with the changes for the establishments. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I know the presentation showed 38 years of experience for me, but I want to tack on another 4. I started in my parents' garage. So in middle school, I got 4 extra years, so I'm claiming 42 years. New option for displaying individual licenses will be available January 1st, 2023. I want to talk about some new options for cosmetologists and barbers in this new statute. Then this is statute 1603, 2107. And it says an original license with an attached photo can be displayed near the licensee's workstation or kept at the reception desk, or a digital image of the license with a photo attached of the license holder. In 2012, Cosmetology Rule 8370 was amended. And when it was amended, it allowed cosmetologists to keep their licenses at the reception desk. Now, there's a new option for barbers. So barbers are allowed to keep their licenses at the reception desk. Under the barber statute 1601-451, barbers could keep their licenses near the workstation. So it wasn't uncommon going to a barber shop to do an inspection and see all these licenses gathered together near the licensee's workstation. Cosmetologists will have this new option as opposed to being at the workstation. What's new for both programs is the digital image. Now these licenses can be displayed on a computer, tablet, or phone. So this is new for barbers and cosmetologists. Effective January the 1st, 2023, scope of practice for Class A barbers. Currently, barbers are only able to remove superfluous hair from the neck up. Barbers are only allowed to do waxing services from the neck up. Now, because of this change of scope of practice, effective January 2023, barbers will be able to remove superfluous hair from a person's body. So barbers will be able to do body waxing. So I know Yvonne talked about barbers not being able to do eyelashes. Guess what? Body waxing.
I wasn't gonna steal your thunder, Sean. I wanted you to get that presentation.
So businesses that offer full service waxing full body waxing services can now hire barbers. And I gotta be honest with you all, when I read this, I had to open up my lady and my dictionary. Because we even inherited these new fancy words. Barbers will be able to remove superfluous hair from a person's body using depilatories, preparation or chemicals, tweezers or other devices or appliances, or any kind of descriptions. Wow.
Wow.
Update
Sean, are you
license.
gonna offer those services?
What's that?
Are you gonna offer those services? You gonna add that to your list?
No, I'm gonna let my man be the first. Okay, September 1st, 2023. All barbershops, beauty salons, and dual shops will transition to the Barber and Cosmetology Full Service Establishment License. So you will be receiving a new license, and it's gonna say Barber and Cosmetology Full Service Establishment License. This transition will take place September 1st, 2023. So I don't want you all standing by your mailbox on September the 1st, thinking that that license is gonna be in your mailbox. We get this all the time. If you wanna complain, again, my name is Ray Rosario.
He's a comedian.
Specialty licenses will also transition to a Barber and Cosmetology Specialty Establishment License on September the 1st, 2023. So all rules apply. Again, if you want to complain, my name is Yvonne Lopez.
Okay.
So again, my name is Sean O'Neill. Thanks.
Hey guys,
Hello.
my name is Angie. I'm a manager in the Education Examination Division, and today I'm going to talk to you about some school signs and postings. Barber or cosmetology schools, how many cos schools? Okay, this is new for you guys. Just like it is, like Sean and Angela said, for the establishments, cosmetology salons, for the schools. The health and safety rules are now required to be posted. It's been that way for barber schools. This is a new requirement for cosmetology schools. This is effective January 1, 2023. We have it available on our website for you to just print out. It doesn't have to be any specific color or anything like that. But if you don't want to print it out and have the sign posted, you can have the law and rule book available just like you can for your establishments. Like they said, we hope to have the books by fall 2023. Serious paper shortage in the world right now, which there's random shortages of everything. But we do hope to have those available so you can either have the sign or have the book. This was also new from House Bill 1560. It's 1603.2305, I believe. School student practitioners. This is a new sign. For you barber schools, how you had the sign on the inside, how you had to have it on all four walls, the student, you don't have to have those anymore. If you are forever attached to them, and you can leave them. You don't have to take them down, but they're no longer required. However, for both barber and cosmetology schools, from outside, client entrance must be visible a sign that says school/student practitioners. And it's in 10-inch block letters. If you have a parking lot in the back where clients can come in, you have to have a sign back there. You have it in the front. Anywhere a client is going to enter the building, they must be able to see the sign so that they know that the people practicing inside are not licensed barbers and cosmetologists, that they are students. You guys are very creative. Your industry is. You create works of art, beauty every day. Be creative. It doesn't specify what colors it has to be, what it can be made out of, as long as that you do have the sign. And it is by January 1, 2023 as well. And next, I'm going to turn it over to Lorraine.
Hello, my name is Lorraine Schroep, and I am the team lead in the Education and Examination Division that works directly with the Barber and Cosmetology schools. My team is the one that answers those shears questions and helps you with those issues and corrections that have to be made. So the ratio, student-teacher ratio of 25-1, that is not changing. That will stay the same. For all those permitted students, you still have to have one teacher for every 25 students. Now, if you are offering a teacher training course at the same time at the school, that will not apply to those individuals that may be taking that teacher training course because they are not permitted students clocking hours. There will be new school licenses being issued. Just like there are new establishment licenses, there are going to be new school licenses. If you currently hold a barber school license and a cosmetology school license, effective September 1, 2023, you will only have to hold one license to offer all of those courses. So if you hold both of those licenses, you will only need to renew one of those licenses. If you want to start offering barber or cosmetology courses, you will be able to do that September 1, all under one license. So you will be able to offer those courses with the first 700 hours. You can have all of your cosmetology and barber students together. And then those remaining 300 hours that apply to the shaving, you need to have a Class A barber teaching the shaving portion hours. And then an operator would need to teach those remaining 300 hours with the eyelash extension. So do we have any schools here that currently have both licenses? Okay, good. So you know how you have those separated now. You've got the barber over here and the cosmetology over here. You will no longer have to do that. So as long as you have one address, you can have one license. If you have two separate licenses where those schools are divided, then you'll still have to have two separate licenses. Or you have the option of closing one of those locations and just keeping the one location and offering both of those courses all at the one location. All right. Currently, you do not have to collect an email address for your students when you are enrolling those. But we're going to ask that you start collecting those email addresses for your new students and for those current students who are enrolled. You can go into Shears and update address, phone number, and email address. Or the student can go to the website and update their contact information. But if we have an email address on file, when they go to take their exams, they will be able to receive their exam report by email. And so that's why we're asking for you to start collecting those email addresses, because that's something nice that PSI is being able to offer to students now as they pass those exams. And Sean had mentioned the digital image for the establishments. That is not something that is allowed for the schools. For your schools, you're still going to need to have your records of your student permits and have those available if an inspector comes in to do an inspection. That digital image will not be an option for you. Okay? Thank you guys for coming today. It's a pleasure to meet you.
So guys, you heard from our presenters. We're gonna start taking some questions and looking at the questions that came in. But I want you guys to know, you heard about the instructor license, is there's no longer an instructor license, and those folks are gonna get an operator license when you renew. There's a lot of different scenarios that happens when those individuals go to renew. Look at it this way. That responsibility of teaching your students is back onto the schools. So for example, you guys that have school owners, you guys are going to say, am I gonna hire Eric, who just graduated from barbering school, to teach at your school, barbering to your students? That's your prerogative, right? He has a Class A barber, he can do so. Or are you gonna go back and maybe say, I'm gonna look at someone who has held a barbering license for, maybe my standards in my school is, I'm gonna go 5 years, or maybe I'm gonna go 10 years. Maybe you decide you're gonna say, I am going to offer, as you heard Rebecca saying, I'm gonna offer a training certificate course at my school. Maybe I'll use the TDLR course that was being offered as an instructor course and make it my own and teach that course. Just remember, be truthful with the student. Don't let them think that they're gonna get a license from TDLR if they take the course. Cause then they're gonna come complaining to us, right? Hey, he charged me so much money and I thought I was getting a license. No, there is no instructor license. So you can teach it and say, these are the standards that it's gonna take for you to work at my school. So that's on you, that's on the school. So just remember those things. Other things that happen on the establishment, right? You have one license now. Doesn't mean, and you heard Angela, doesn't mean you have to offer it. We're just setting our standards and our license when we issue them, that we don't have to go back and issue another license if you decide to do the other services. That's part of the efficiency Sunset was talking about. So that's why we're doing that. So you can hold that license, offer what you want, but you can offer it even more. Same with the schools, right? We're gonna offer one license. There are some schools right now that hold both a barber and a cosmetology license because they wanted to teach both of them, right? That school has an option to say, you know what? I'm gonna keep both of those schools and I'm gonna offer both services at both schools. Or they're gonna say, I'm gonna save myself money instead of renewing, and I'm gonna close one school and have offering everything under one. You can do that, but just know those are those options that you have. But remember, from what I said at the beginning, the scope of practice of the individual license is not changed. You're still gonna be a barber, still be a cosmetologist. You still have to have all of that education. The exams are not changing. So whatever you teach at your schools, if you're gonna teach a Class A barber, know that the reference on the exam and the candidate information bulletin still the same. They're gonna need to know all of the things that they learned today, tomorrow, and past 2023 and September 1. So if I'm gonna hold the license for Class A barber, and I also wanna hold a license for an operator, how many exams do you guys think I'll need to take? 4, right? It hasn't changed. I'm gonna be a Class A barber, I gotta take the written exam, and then I gotta get a practical exam, and then I get my license. Remember that if you do the crossover, even if you start from the beginning or do the crossover, I gotta take the written exam for the operator, take the practical exam for the operator, right? So it seems like there's been a shift of change, but there really isn't. It just seems that way because we're saying, oh, you can do it all together, but everything still exists. It's still in that same manner. The key thing that you need to understand is if you're gonna teach the students together, you need to make sure that you are only able to teach the scope of practice for the license you hold. So if all of you have is a Class A barber and you wanna instruct operators, you can't do it, right? You're gonna have to hire someone, or heard from other cities, go back to school, right? Do the crossover and get your own operator license, and now you hold both, right? So just know those things. That's on you guys. Because remember, the 83-202, those are technical requirements. You're gonna look, you heard Lorraine talk about the 700 hours and the 300 and 300, right? That's the technical requirements. You're gonna develop your curriculum accordingly, right? There's no more crossover per se. The crossover is embedded in there. You got the 700, 300, 300, right? The difference in the crossover, how many of y'all offer the crossover program? Okay, so you remember when you do the crossover, those individuals, they have to have held that license for a year, right? They can't just automatically, oh, I'm gonna go and get a crossover and get the other license. After September 1, 2023, you're not gonna have that anymore, right? They don't have to wait a year because they're all under one license So they can actually say, hey, I'm gonna do the Class A and I also wanna have the operator. So you're gonna have to craft your course so that you can offer that, offer the proper topics so that individual can get both of them, taking the exam and all that good stuff, right? All right, so now we got all of that straight now. We think. So let's, Angie, you wanna ask some of the questions?
We need a break.
Do you guys need a break? Okay, let's go.
Is there a question link? I'll put that back up, like where we can submit questions.
Oh, yeah, you guys, if you wanna just call it out, you're fine.
Okay.
I'll call on you guys.
Can cosmetology instructors teach the manicuring portion and facial portions to barbers?
I'll let Lorraine, you guys heard it, repeat the question.
Can cosmetology instructors teach the manicuring portion and facial portions to barbers?
All right, so for that 700 hours, the dependent upon how you have your course lesson plans developed, that will determine if it's going to need to be a Class A barber teaching the students or if it's an operator teaching the students. Now, you can reference both books. The Milady and the Pivot Point have both the barber and the cosmetology books. And remember, those referencing books are still going to be on the exam. So that barber student is still going to take a written and practical exam based on the reference material in the barber book. The operator student is still going to take the written and practical exam based on the cosmetology book. So you will need to determine how you want to develop your lesson plan to ensure that that student is coming away with those minimum skills to be able to pass the exam and receive their license.
So, what's your name?
You
Karina?
know my name, I worked with you guys 6
I
years.
I forget names.
Gloria Blackwell.
Gloria, so Gloria,
Mhm.
and your name?
Jennifer Groves.
Jennifer. So Gloria, Jennifer, you guys are schools. Let's look at, you guys do crossover, right? Okay, so when a person goes to your school, let's say they're gonna do Class A barber, right? They take currently, they take the 1,000 hours,
Yes.
right? They graduate, they get a license, they do the test, you're done. Hey, Jennifer, I wanted to do the crossover. You're not gonna teach them the 700 hours again, right? Why not? They already took it. Right? So let's just say you hold both license types, both the Class A as a instructor, you have both the Class A and the operator license. Now you're gonna say, oh, you gotta come do the crossover. You're gonna teach 300 hours of the eyelash extension. You hold the both licenses, so you're teaching it. You already taught that person the first 700 hours as a barber. Now you're not gonna teach the same barber 700 hours as a cosmetologist. You're gonna go and do the 300. Why you're not teaching the 700? Because you heard earlier, it's the same topic requirement, right? So again, to what Lorraine is saying is, how you craft your course is gonna be critical, because there are gonna be some schools that, and Sean has mentioned this to me, there's gonna be some schools that are gonna offer part of, I'm just gonna say it this way, part of the 700 hours, but they're also gonna be doing shaving, let's say. They're just not strictly gonna do 700 hours. That's on you, school. So if you're starting to do that and you don't hold the proper license, let's just say you're doing cosmetology, you're doing the operator, and now you're gonna go mingle into the shaving part, well, you don't have the Class A, what are you doing, right? So the question is not an easy question of, can I do this or this? The question really is, how are you developing your course, right? Some schools may say, okay, as long as I have them both at the same time, same place, at the same time, I can do that. But you know what? I think I'm gonna do it obviously in the same classroom, but I don't have time to fiddle with all of that. I'm gonna do barbers in the morning and I'm gonna do cosmetology in the afternoon, or it doesn't matter how you do it, right? But you gotta have the proper license to teach those. Just remember that. That's the key piece of it. We can't sit here and tell you this is the way to do it. Right? We guys need to be crafty. What's the next one?
How does one become a member of the advisory board?
Why don't you go ahead and, Derek?
Yeah, so the advisory board, they serve 6-year terms. It's basically like a job application. So we send out notice when there's a vacancy on the board, and you can apply and essentially tell us what your qualifications are. And then we have a process for deciding who the most qualified applicant is. So, you know, until there's a vacancy, there's no way to get on the board, but as soon as there is one, we'll send out notice and let you know how we select.
Okay, our inspector came in 2 weeks ago and asked for the student practitioner sign. So is this requirement starting January 1 or already required? The requirement starts January 1, 2023.
What is?
And remember, in the rule, there's this, and you heard Angie said it earlier in her piece of the presentation, there's specific words that has to be on the sign.
That's in law.
That's in law. So it says
School,
student practitioner.
Don't forget the dashes.
Don't forget the dashes, our counselor says. School, student practitioner. That was law, and you'll see it repeated in rule. Derek has put those in there.
Yes, and it's the 10-inch block letter, that is in law as well.
Yeah.
And again, that's not TDLR.
Yeah, they've given us a requirement. It needs to say this, and it needs to be 10-inch block.
And it needs to be visible from the outside, a client coming into your facility. It can't be tucked inside like behind a reception desk or anyone coming to your school. And I know for some high schools, your school's not gonna let you put it up right out front of the high school, a big sign. That's different because you probably have a room inside the high school and you can work with your administrators on where to put that, where to put your sign. But it is law, 1603.2305.
And I want to add to that question that was asked about the inspectors. We have been telling the inspectors to educate schools now. So it's not going to be uncommon for an inspector to let the schools know that, look, this is what's coming down the pipe. You're going to have a sign that says school-student practitioner.
Right.
So that is that's what inspectors are doing.
Yeah, and thanks, Sean. If you do it earlier, great. You know, they're just kind of letting you know, hey, this is coming, like we are letting you know now. If you do it earlier, great. If you do it afterwards, you need to make sure you get it done before. Go ahead.
And I just want to add, the 10-inch requirement is the height, it's not the width. You don't have to have 10-inch square letters, it's just the height. So it just needs to be capital letters, 10-inch high.
Yeah. Thanks, Eric.
January is. Kids are probably asking. We are trying to get the word out about the signage.
Go ahead.
I think in reference to that question that they were speaking on about practitioner sign, they are exactly right, that they had inspectors that was requiring us to get the practitioner sign in, but it did not say school student practitioner, it just said practitioner. Because we have one posted right now saying practitioner only, we spent a lot of money on it, and now they're asking for us to change it to school student practitioner. So it was an inspector going around requiring us to have a practitioner sign before January, and now we're being told to change it, which is fine. The law is the law, but that's what they told us at the beginning, and this is why we have practitioner inside our schools.
Inside.
Yeah, inside the building, inside, hand outside, right there. But we was required to have it. That was stated to us by our actual inspector. So this is why we have it.
Thanks for bringing that.
Mhm.
John. Eric will,
With you after.
yeah.
You get to
Go ahead.
Hold on, because it's asking me to shut off my computer and.
What,
So is that sign gonna have to be outside and inside, or?
Yeah.
it says.
outside.
Outside.
The signs that used to be required inside on all four walls, those are no longer required.
But you can leave them there.
You can leave them
if you
there.
want. That's
So
what
you just put that sign outside, right?
you might have separation anxiety if you take them down.
Yeah, you could, Barber, those who don't know, barber schools have to have the sign inside the four walls that says bar. You could leave them up, but this is talking about on the outside. What they're looking
Right.
for is when a client comes to the facility, the client understands that there are students inside, not licensed individual students. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Just need a little clarification. When it comes to manicures, are manicures, able to do eyelashes?
No, manicure,
I
no.
know, I just want to know.
Go ahead.
Will schools, I don't know who, maybe it's you that answers, schools be inspected still twice a year like normal?
Up to.
So the question is, I wanna make sure everybody hears it too. Will schools be inspected twice a year is what you're asking?
Versus the risk-based?
But versus the risk?
Right, so some schools will be inspected twice a year, some may be inspected less frequently. It depends on the compliance history of the school.
But probably for sure once a year?
Definitely,
Okay.
yes.
Are you just trying to find out your schedule?
Yeah.
We've been good, we haven't had one problem, but I'm like, oh, I was hoping maybe it would just be like the salons every few years if you're good, but I guess not.
So I have a question to the 25-to-1 ratio, being that you guys asked us to put in a curriculum the way that we want to put the curriculum in. And we do have our new foundation book that they have added on to have at the beginning of our program. Is it still at a 25-to-1 ratio when it comes down to having all of these different requirements with barber and cosmetology come together, as well as nail technicians in the same classroom for the beginning of the foundation process? Is it still that 1-to-25 ratio for that actual beginning version of that class?
Yes, it doesn't attach to the curriculum, it attaches to the number of students.
Okay,
So yes, it's still 25-to-1.
okay.
Okay. If I'm currently enrolled in school and the bill is passed right before I graduate, will I still be called a cosmetologist or will my license say practitioner?
So, good question. Your license no license, whether now, after September 2023, is not gonna say practitioner. Practitioner is you only see it in the sign, right? The sign we just talked about. The license is gonna say what Yvonne showed in her slides, all of those license types, right? Class A barber, operator, manicurist, esthetician,
Hair weaving?
hair weaving,
Eyelash extension.
eyelash extension, and a dual.
Yeah.
So that's what it's gonna say. The license on top, more than likely, I haven't seen the new one, is probably gonna say, instead of saying barber or cosmetology, it's gonna say Barber and Cosmetology, and then the name of Class A barber. For schools, you're gonna get a new license, and it's gonna get one license. If you had to, one would say barber school and the name of the barber school, cosmetology school and the name of the school. Now you're gonna get one license and say Barber and Cosmetology School, name of the school, with the license number.
Okay. This one just says, asking for high school cosmetology. I have student taking her practical exam. When she receives her cosmetology operator license, I do understand student. It cut it off. So was someone in here, did someone ask that question? Okay.
Whoever wrote that, maybe clarify, put it in the poll again, please. I don't wanna speculate, I'm not sure.
Right.
Go ahead.
Oh, I have a question. When it comes down to the state board practical, do y'all have any class or anything where to know directly how each particular service plan is done, just to be sure that it's being done right towards?
So I'll tell you, first of all, let me just say, I think I said earlier, the exams aren't changing, same thing. Remember, prior to COVID, we used to have our meetings with PSI schools, you guys remember that? We call them open houses. That kind of like went away because that COVID thing, right? So, but that'll come back. I'll tell you that, we have that in the contract, our contract with PSI, we mandate and demand them to say, hey, We gotta have open houses for our schools. We gotta talk to our schools. So don't have things like that. Go ahead, Rebecca.
So to clarify, all of the examinations for practical, the steps are in your textbook. That's where we reference them. We reference them from Out of My Lady and Pivot Points. So the steps are there. All those procedures are what the raters are looking for when they rate the examinations. What we're no longer doing is giving somebody such as myself who has zero experience step-by-step instructions in that candidate information bulletin, where if I really studied that bulletin, I would pass it, and that's not making a proper assessment. So now we're doing is the references, as long as they're doing those steps that they've learned in the textbook, they're fine.
Go ahead.
Are hair extensions considered a wig? Is a license required to install hair extensions?
No, hair extensions are not wigs, and yes, a license is required to apply any kind of hair extension, whether it be with the adhesive, with the glue, sewing, any kind of hair attachment, a license is required.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Tinsels? The reason I ask is there is a store in the mall, Lakeline Mall,
Mm-hmm.
that is advertising that they will do the tinsels and just little curls, you know, different colors of hair for this.
Oh, those things. that-
Yeah, for the little girls and stuff like that. And I asked, point blank asked the person, do you have a licensed person doing this?
Right.
Their reply was, no. You know what, we're have to do anything with wigs.
Well,
So
tinsels,
I'm confused.
yeah, and we know tinsels, you can apply those tinsels different ways.
Right.
You know, it's not, it's common to see, you may have a little strip of tinsel that you'll just literally tie. You know, that's no big deal.
They're talking about using a tool.
Now, if you, yeah, that's what I was gonna get to. Now, if you get into using a tool to apply those, then yes, you will need a license, because you can cause damage to the hair with those tools. So if a tool is used, yes, you will need a license.
Yes.
Why
Yes.
would we remove the requirement for applicants to not have a high school diploma or GED? Basic understanding of an educational setting is necessary before entering a higher education setting. What benefit does this deregulation have?
Comments?
Yeah, so if you watch the last advisory board meeting, they have a really extended discussion about this and they take a vote on this specific issue. And so, you know, currently the two programs have differing standards for general education. Barber, you only have to have a 7th grade education. Cosmetologist, you had to have a high school diploma or GED. And so we had to find a way, how do we bring these together and make a single standard? And so this was, you know, a difficult issue to struggle with, but ultimately the advisory board decided that they did not want to add the requirement for the high school diploma, but we did add the age requirement of being 17 years old. And so that was where they landed. It was a tough issue. If you watch it, they struggled with that, but ultimately they didn't want to impose that barrier.
Thanks, Derek.
Can one window still say Barber College? As long as you have the school student practitioner sign clearly visible from the outside of any client entrance.
Yeah, I think that's probably they're talking about the old sign, maybe.
Yeah,
So they
you can
keep it-
keep that, you
yeah.
can leave that one,
The key thing is having the new sign up.
yes. For the cosmetology license, the 300 hours have to be eyelashes only, question mark.
Repeat it again?
For the cosmetology license, the 300 hours have to be eyelashes only? They're asking.
Okay,
Yeah, good
I'll,
question.
we'll answer that if you look in the proposed rules under 83202, it'll specifically tell you what that, I don't know it by heart, it'll specifically tell you all of the topics that one would teach in that 300 hours, which includes eyelash extension. You have it up?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
it's more than that. So it'll say eyelash, semi-permanent extensions, advanced hair care and advanced hair care and advanced chemical services and related practices. So it's not just the eyelash extensions.
So to that point, when we're talking about earlier, when you're doing your curriculum, if you're doing the crossover, you have that 300-hour course that you're offering as a school, currently, right, when you're doing the crossover. And you have that curriculum where people enroll, right, and you teach them the 300 hours. That's the same thing, but it's not called the crossover now. But you have that same ability to teach those courses. And if you do create a course that way, I think Lorraine and her team are gonna put on your certificate of approval, you're offering this service, right? The courses that you're offering.
When will the esthetician and wig license program be ready?
I don't know what.
There is an esthetician hair week. That is a new curriculum that you will be able to apply for that's available August 1st. August 1st is when that new course will start.
Okay, do you need an operator license to teach women or men who come into your salon to get more experience and to learn some new techniques or skills?
I'll answer this way. You cannot teach in a salon. Or let's just say in the future, it'll be an establishment, right? All teaching and educating to obtain a license must be done in licensed schools, right?
But
There's
mentoring,
there's not apprenticeships, and I think that maybe that's where it's alluding. We don't have, that has not passed here in Texas. We don't have that in the law. So we don't have an apprenticeship program.
There's somebody in Kyle or Peter that's doing that.
I just want to know, speaking on the apprenticeship program, is this something that y'all have been, thinking of or considering, like, at some point?
We can't consider it because it's not our role to do so. That would have to be a law change, right? We just can't implement, and you heard Dee Dee talk about the laws and rules. We can't implement something by rule if we don't have the statutory authority to do so, right? Like, in other words, we just can't say, we're bringing back 1,500 hours because it was a law change. So it's the same. Yeah, same thing here, until they give us that authority to say, hey, now you can do apprenticeships, and here's how you can do it, TDLR, and then we'll have to go back to the drawing board with Derek and write rules to conform that. That's how that kind of works.
Barbers don't need a diploma. Will the cosmetology license requirement change?
What?
Derek, I think it's the same.
Yeah, it's the same question. So, neither operators nor Class A barbers will need the high school diploma, but they will need to be 17 years old.
Right, and folks, I know this has been, and I think I said this at the advisory board meeting, these are requirements, minimum requirements to obtain that license to practice, right? So it's the same thing. Part of the minimum requirements is pass the exam, complete the education, and in this case, if the rule is adopted, be 17. So they can be 16 in your school, and they come to us and they do everything and they're not 17, we're not gonna give them a license. Right? That's how those are license requirements, not requirements to go to your school.
Hey. Operator teach the first 700 hours of cosmetology operator and the Class A barber curriculum. This is a yes or no question. Can someone please answer this question?
Larry? You wanna repeat it?
I'm not sure I understand it.
Can a cosmetology operator teach the first 700 hours to either cosmetology or barber students?
It depends how the course is.
We've already answered
Yeah.
that question. It's gonna depend upon how you develop your course curriculum.
Remember, and I know you guys, your schools know this, we don't have a curriculum in rule. Doesn't exist. There is no curriculum in barber or cosmetology, which is why it's called technical requirements. We have the requirements for you to develop your curriculum. There are other programs we regulate. The curriculum exists in rule and in law. And the folks who are teaching it cannot change it. You can't say, well, I'm gonna do this time and this, it's set in law. In cause and bar, it's not set in law. But what's set in law is the requirements of what your curriculum should contain. So that's the little difference, sir.
Forgive me, I'm a school administrator, zero cosmetology. So what I'm hearing, could a operator, because now the operator instructor is not anything anymore. So could an operator teach the Barber A instruction?
If they have a
Like
barber
at a high
shop.
school, I'm looking for the first couple of years, right, where the other state agency with the bad three letters TEA sets their stuff, where I have a kid that takes a freshman year, a sophomore year course. Could they all be in the same class, learning the same thing as long as their standards overlap?
Okay, I'll answer it this way. I'm gonna answer it as a scenario if I was holding an operator license. Okay, so the scenario is, I have an operator license, I have a school. I develop my course to solely look at the technical requirements that are in 83202A or 1? A, and an A, that's the 700 hours. I'm developing a course solely for those 700 hours. And I'm an operator license, I hold a license. I'm gonna teach students that need those 700 hours if I develop it that way. Here's the 700 hours and I'm teaching it to all, regardless of whether which path are you gonna take, right? I'm not gonna even commingle shaving or eyelash extension because I'm not doing that because there's some students that probably haven't decided what they wanted to do in my school, right? Now I'm gonna go and separate students and maybe get my compadre over here, Sean, because he's a Class A barber, and he's gonna teach that. But there are a lot of schools that don't do that. Schools don't teach like that. You're gonna have a barber school that's going to teach part of the 700 hours, and then they're gonna do shaving. And now, how is a cosmetologist is gonna teach this, and then they segue to shaving? Whoa, do you hold a license? You can't do that. So which is why I go back to say, you as an educator need to make sure you are teaching what you are authorized to teach based on the scope of practice and based on what license you hold, right? If you hold both licenses, then you need to figure out with your students, hey, what do you guys want to do here? Or you guys want to be both? Okay, well, I'm gonna set this up so I can teach this and I could dedicate time for this and dedicate time for that. Oh, you students, you just want to be operators, and you know what? You got to pass this afternoon. You guys go away, and these students, I'm gonna do this. So that's on you guys. We don't have a magical way of doing it, because every school is gonna do it differently based on how you develop your course. It's all about the course and how you develop it. That's the best way I can answer it. Is that?
So an operator can provide instruction to a barber if you set it up that way.
Not to a barber. Let's not confuse. It's not to a barber. It's to the courses that individual is taking. Electives, right? I'm gonna go be a psychologist in college. I gotta take all these electives. I'm not taking psychologist courses yet. These are electives. So you don't know, it depends on, again, how you set it up. I wanna stay away from an operator is teaching a Class A barber. Because when you start saying that, that means when you say Class A barber, what can Class A barber do? Shave. So you're basically saying that an operator can teach somebody to shave. I don't wanna say that, because that's not what we're doing. That's not what we're saying. So that's why I'm saying it's about the course. I wanna stick to that deal. Because I'm presuming there's probably gonna be a lot of schools that are not gonna have the students sitting in one classroom just because it may be too complicated for the instructor, I'm gonna call it that way, to teach them. But that's just gonna be your choice.
I just want to add, and I'm talking from my experience. When I was in school, theory goes on maybe an hour to 2 hours. But when that sign turns open, when they turn it, put that open sign on, you're gonna be somebody come in, hey, I want to shave, I want eyelash extensions, I want, and you can't have that cosmetologist there when someone walks through that door and he wants to shave, or he wants to, raise a line. So it has to be a licensed person present at all times. So when that sign turns on, you should have that licensed barber, that licensed operator present.
Or the individual who holds both licenses.
Right. So let's navigate this, slowly. We still have we've got some ways. We still have, we gotta fix things on our end with shears. How you got, because for me, the questions I think you guys would wanna know is, how am I gonna post these hours in shears?
What I was just gonna
Right?
ask.
I don't know. I'll be honest with you guys, I don't know, because we need to figure out and talk to our IT folks, all of our team, and we're trying to figure out, what is this gonna look like? I don't want you posting hours twice repetitively, right? And then that student may seem that they got 1,400 hours. Wait, they didn't really clock the 700 hours twice. So we're gonna need to figure that out. Let's not worry about that. We'll get there. And that's why I was saying, these are phase 1 rules. We're gonna have phase 2. We're gonna have phase 2 and 3 of how schools we're gonna operate. We'll call another meeting just for the schools and say, okay, I think we figured it out. Here's what we're gonna do. Here's what Shears is gonna look like. And we're gonna show you the new Shears 2.0, whatever that may look like. I don't know what it's gonna look like. The IT folks are gonna have to convince me that this could work. We're gonna do it this way. But I don't wanna start telling you it's gonna be one way when it could actually change later. But do know, I think the big thing is, just teach what you're authorized to teach. That's the key thing.
So.
Yes.
So like where I have my instructor's license, but it's gonna drop off, I get that and fall back to my operator's license, but I have my aesthetics license as well. But if I wanna go and add this barbering that we're talking about, is it still just the 300 additional hours
Yes.
to do so?
Yes.
Yes.
That's still there in the rule, and if you wanna do it right now, and the way you do it right now is a crossover,
Okay,
right?
okay.
That's still there.
Quick question, I don't wanna keep going over, I'm probably tired of it.
No, we're good.
I don't want anything to do with barbering necessarily, I'm a Cosmo instructor,
Okay.
but I know our admin director, probably would like us to start doing it. We have trouble hiring barber instructors, I guess there's not that many out there, so technically we could say we're gonna offer the barbering course and I teach for now, up to 700 hours. That's gonna take them a couple years. It's a high school program. So they wouldn't get their last 300 hours till like their 4th year of high school.
Your teacher pool just opened up a lot more by the regulations. They don't have that infrastructure.
Right,
Just
right.
something to consider is that,
It's just been-
your administrators
Yeah.
will would probably want to have somebody apply and interview.
Right.
And once they get those references, get information from whoever their employer is to say, have they taught before? Whatever criteria your administration sets.
So I'm thinking.
Don't provide false hope to your students by, and this is me, I don't know how you guys operate, but I wouldn't want to bring in students, provide a false hope, and I teach them so many hours, and then I never get a Class A barber, for example. Now, guess what? Those students are gonna call us. Why can't I get my barber license? They told me I wasn't. Well,
I could see her saying, our admin director saying, you need 700 of this program anyway.
Hire Sean, he has 4 years of garage.
Fresh out of the garage.
The next question is, did you talk about the distance learning hour amount?
Oh, no.
No, we didn't talk about that. Do we want to talk about that?
Yeah, I did, okay.
No? Okay, we won't talk about it. Watch me put it. So who wants to talk about it? You wanna-
Distance education was proposed at 25%. During the advisory board, that was adjusted to 50%. But that's only theory hours. So even though it's 50%, that doesn't necessarily mean you've got 500 theory hours
Right.
in your curriculum. So it can only be theory hours, but you are allowed up to 50% in your distance education hours.
The law specifically says, and
So just to qualify, that's if the commission adopts that version.
That is
Correct.
correct.
So it's still up for grabs.
and it's still 25 right now.
And currently it's still 25, but
Correct.
even if they adopt the change, that will not be until September.
Correct. So the
August.
law,
August 1st.
August 1st, the law says no practical can be done in a distance learning setting.
Right.
The law says that right now. You can't do it.
Right.
Practical cannot be done. Session's coming up, 2023, second Tuesday of every odd year. Session comes up, right? They may introduce bills that says, hey, with all this COVID and all this, work from home and all this change that has happened in the new world we live in, they may add a bill or some law that says online schools is available for Barber Cos. That's what I see. It's online schools, distance learning. You can't do online schooling because that includes practical. That means you want to do all of it. Remember we had the temporary provisions when all the schools shut down, right? And nobody knew what to do because the law was written for what? Brick and mortar schools. And when your school shut down, the governor gave some leniency to say, hey, brick and mortar schools continue to work at home. These are the things, and Lorraine captured all the schools and the platforms we're gonna do. But when that went away, and there was a notice that went out in August, that went away, meaning, hey, brick and mortar schools, you're now bring your kids back to your classroom. That it was a temporary relief. It's not to go on forever. So we gotta abide by the laws. That means all schools need to operate in a brick and mortar fashion. If you've been signed up for distance learning and approved, you're able to do 25%. It may change with these new rules, but other than that, you can't do practical.
So quick question on that. We are doing just theory, and that's fine, but right now it's 25%, and when could it be 50%? Not
August 1st, 2020.
Okay, so any seniors we have right now that are struggling, it's not gonna really help them.
No.
Okay, cause
Get to school,
we've done the math and we're like, you're not gonna finish.
And you need to be able to document what exactly you're teaching. Because
Yeah.
if you see Eric's face, he's a bearer of bad news, right? He's gonna come out and inspect you guys. And if you guys are not doing something that you're not supposed to be doing, then you're gonna get written up, and you don't wanna do that, right? Because then you're gonna get in that risk-based category, you don't wanna do that. So that just make sure that if you're doing distance education, you have it documented, this is what I'm doing. Don't arbitrarily to what Lorraine say, oh, it's 50%, it changed, I'm gonna do 500 hours. Just
That
be
may
aware.
change, and if it does, it's not till August. Okay.
If a Barber student owes a tuition balance, can we mark it unpaid in shears when we drop them like we can in the cosmetology program?
Is that person following us?
I know.
Any questions been asked? Hey, great question. I'm not poking fun at it. Great question. It could be confusing. Schools, this hasn't changed. Just because the Barber Cos merged, this has been in place since the programs came to us back in 2005. Schools cannot hold student hours hostage. That's the easy answer. If they went to your school and you allowed them to sit in your school and you allowed them to clock the hours and you went on a side conversation with a handshake saying, oh yeah, you're gonna pay me later. That's your problem, right? They're gonna test and they're gonna get a license. You can't call the department and say, hey, they didn't pay me. We don't have any provisions to help you on that. Now, there is the law of where it resides. What is that, 455? I think it's 1602. Now that's going to 1603. I'm gonna have to relearn all of these laws again. I can't remember them. But
1603.2313.
2313, it says transfer of hours. So if I go to your school and I clock 800 hours, right? Then I go to your school and she was mean to me, I leave. So I go to your school and I clock 200 hours. I'm not gonna be able to sit for an exam. Cause I can't, these hours won't count. I haven't paid her. If I pay her, then I'm eligible to sit. And then I can say, bye, I ain't paying you. Right? Cause you didn't collect my money for the 200 hours. That's on you, right? But if I didn't pay her 800, I went to you for 200, you're gonna say, hey, you still owe me 800 hours. You can't sit for the exam. Oh, I clocked 800 hours, though. They don't count. They're transfer hours. So I would have to reclock all of the hours with you or pay her. Or if we just did a handshake behind the scene and you didn't collect my money for the 1,000 hours, I can sit for the entire 1,000 hours, not pay you, not have paid her for the previous, because those don't count, and I get to sit and take the exam and get a license. Only for transfer hours. So we can't hold the school hostage on hours.
Can a graduate barber pay for their permit online like the cosmetologist can now?
Repeat it again?
For a permit.
Yeah. Can a graduate barber pay for their permit online like the cosmetologist can now?
If they're talking about the license, the Class A barber license, you cannot currently apply online, but we are working on that.
So it's probably the license they're talking about.
That's what I think, yes.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Yeah, that's what they're asking.
Removing a high school diploma, GED, or ATB test means the current vocabulary must be reviewed in cosmetology. A 7th or 8th grade reading level will not be able to comprehend.
Thank you for your opinion.
Well, I mean, and Rebecca, can you talk a little bit about the exam piece of that?
The examination terminology for the exam items come directly out of the textbook. So, and one thing that we've done away with is for the scientific terminology. So if something is referencing the scientific word for ringworm, we switch it to ringworm. Because if you're working on a client, you're not gonna give them the scientific term. You're going to tell them, I'm sorry, I cannot perform services because you've got ringworm. Or you have head lice.
Right.
Or any of those, other terms that we go with. That is something that we've consciously been doing that with these examinations. Other things is the textbook. The words that we use when we develop these examinations come directly out of the textbook. So each textbook, they're drafted the exact same way by Cengage. So we're not going to add any additional, $1 million words. We're going to use terminology that matches with the industry. It's industry knowledge. It's not going to be something that they've never heard before.
Thank you.
Do shampoo techs in a salon need a license in Cosmo or barbering?
No, there's no license required to shampoo. No license or permit.
No.
When I talked about this, the question being cut off earlier, they resent it again, but it's still cut off. So I don't know.
Too many words.
That's too many words. So if you have something that cut off, just
Part A, part B.
post the latter part,
Yeah.
please, sorry.
Part 2 of your
If you finish a certification for crossover at a school, are you considered licensed or will you need to take the full state exam again to be fully certified?
What do you guys think? Take the test?
Yes, yes.
Written and practical.
Remember, the test is part of the licensing requirement, just like the age, just like the hours, all of that, part of the licensing requirement. We're gonna look for those things before we issue the license.
Okay, we got the rest of it. Will a student be able to decide at 700 hours if they want to flip to another program, Cosmo, Barber, or Barber to Cosmo?
That's the question?
Yes.
I don't know.
That's a good question.
Good question. Remember, Dee Dee said this in, I don't know, Dallas or Houston. We're rounding second base, and some of these questions are great questions, absolutely. but you guys are rounding home. Some of these, we don't have the answer. We need to figure out how we're going to reprogram. Remember, Shears was programmed to be separated. Remember you had login for Barber and one for Cos? They're separated. We need to put this together. And we're thinking, we gotta have one login for Shears, and how do we address these things on where is the student gonna go? I'm here, I wanna go left, or I wanna go right. How is that gonna work? I don't know yet. But the student, according to how the rules are written, right now, they're gonna have an option to get both licenses. That's what I can tell you now. They're gonna have an option to get a Class A barber and an operator, and they won't have to wait a year by holding one license for a year. That's what the rule says, and it allows for that avenue. How do we get there? Don't know yet. We'll get there. We have time. It's not gonna happen tomorrow.
Do barber and cosmetology students need a dividing wall if occupying the same space at the same time, which is currently in effect, starting January 1st?
No. No. Yes. Start January 1st. Well, they still have to
It's
wait
not
for September.
January, it's September.
Yeah. September 1st, yeah.
The dividing wall, why did we have, I just wanna get everybody thinking in the same mindset. Why was there a dividing wall? Currently, why do we have a dividing wall?
It's two separate programs.
Two separate programs in what? Two separate rules. So really,
Sets of rules.
two sets of rules, right? So really, although, I mean, you gotta think of it as like we're comparing, it's like comparing barbers to air conditioning contractors. They're different, right? Although Barber and Cos, obviously, it's similar. We have to treat it differently because there's different laws and rules, which is why we had to have a separation. You're not a barber, you're not a Cos, you're not a, and so forth. Now that it's coming together, now we're saying they're not different per se, right? There's still some distinctions of what one can and cannot do. So that's kind of where the wall is coming down after September 2023 to Dee Dee's reference, we're building one-story house.
Do cosmetology hours expire? If they do, when do they expire?
They do not expire.
Do your hours expire, guys? You guys schools? Your students hold their hours, right? A long time. So even when they go for reciprocity, they're gonna go to another state, they're gonna take their hours with them. So that they'll be able to what Yvonne was saying, you can get a transcript of hours. Even if you guys want a transcript of your instructor hours, it's in our database. And you guys could solicit for that and you can get them.
And if you don't know, you and your students also can pull your hours from our website. If you go to the
Yes.
website and click on your specific license type and you click the exams link, you'll be taken to the part of the site where you can look up your hours that you've accrued, you can look up your eligibility. So this is when we receive requests that are emailed, and they say, hey, I want my transcript of hours, we'll say, hey, you've got to fill out the form and send it in, or you can go online. And I'm training my staff. I think a lot of them are doing it now, but I am training my staff to include that link so that your students or yourselves can go out to our website and look at your hours. It's just not going to be a certified transcript of hours, but it is publicly available if you went to school in Texas.
Okay, go ahead.
Will barbers be required to obtain CE hours?
What do you guys think?
So
So barbers will have to have CE. Not right now, but it's gonna be a requirement. It's
September 1st.
It's in the rule, right?
It's in the rule.
It's in the rule, it's in the proposed rule, and we're gonna require it on September 1st, 2025, after the first renewal cycle, so they'll have 2 years, right? Why so long, maybe you ask? Well, we got to put the word out to all the barbers. Right now, we're trying to get, since that's 2025, we're not really talking about that. We wanna get you guys understanding what's happening with the schools, the salons and shops, and how one can teach, not having the instructor license, trying to take care of that. We're gonna meet with the barbers. Sean, of course, will be there. We're gonna just put him up in front, I'll hide behind Sean. But we're gonna tell the barbers, here's what's gonna happen. You need to have CE. We're gonna meet with LeDietrich Leonard, he's a Class A barber, he's on the work group, and some of their folks on the advisory board to figure out how many hours are we doing. I presume it's gonna be the same like COS, right? So once that happens, we gotta meet with the providers. The providers have to provide these courses, so then they have to develop the course. So we have a long road ahead of us, the department, to meet with all these folks, have those courses out there, educate the providers. You know, don't, if you're gonna teach a course that may apply to both, maybe change the title of it. Because you wanna make sure that a Class A barber understands that I can take this class that has the word operator on it, or, you know, whatever it may be. They don't wanna I wouldn't wanna take something and waste my money and then it doesn't pertain to me or I don't get credit. So there's gonna be a lot of, you know, learning, teaching moments for everyone, but we'll get there. We'll get there, slowly but surely. This is not the end of our shows with all of everything that we're gonna be doing. We'll be talking more about the different programs.
Are emotional support dogs allowed in a salon? They are not classified as a service dog.
That's a
Good question.
I know, I
I don't know the answer to that.
Different.
get on that, GC.
The rule says only service animals are allowed in establishments and schools. If an emotional support animal is not considered a service animal, then it would not be allowed under the book. So you would need to check that law. I don't know the answer to that specifically.
The verification paper. And I think this is our last one. Are you currently taking applications for new programs or is it on hold till 9/1?
New programs.
Is that like if you are a cosmetology school and you want to offer barber?
Oh, maybe.
Is that maybe?
Yeah.
So all these changes you heard today, and you heard dates, right? A lot of this stuff, we're not ready for it yet, which is why those dates are pushed out. The legislature said, you have until 2023 to fully implement everything we've asked you to do. We've started. You've heard, the rules are started. You've heard, Eric they made changes with e-inspections and doing risk-based inspections. You've heard that this past August, we've already started to transition instructors as they renew. So there's a lot of things changing. Website, we haven't touched a website yet. We're getting there. They're working in the background. How do we get all these things together? What do we take away? What do we put? What it's gonna look like? What's the face of the new website for that page? All of that, it's under the works. You heard Lorraine saying, we're gonna issue a new license. When is that gonna happen? We're working on that. We gotta figure out all of that out. We gotta reissue all the license to all of the schools. That's gonna happen with the establishment. Applications are gonna change. There's a lot of things that have to change on our end. Remember at the beginning of this afternoon, I said, most of the work is gonna be on our end? Pretty much. And almost all of the work is gonna be on our end. So you guys will just see the face, you'll see so if you have new students, they probably won't even know the difference once that happens, because they're gonna see a new application and it would always have been that same new application to them. So they're not gonna feel that change. It's mostly on our end. So let's just wait on that and we'll notify you. Trust me, we want you to get the new license. We'll tell you. Is that
There
it?
is one more question, but for whoever the cutoff question, they sent their number, so I will call them.
Okay.
So I can get the rest of the
We'll
question.
call you.
Yes. For a dual licensed barber and cosmetologist, will the Cosmo CE hours count towards barber CE hours?
Say it again?
Will, if they have both the barber and cosmetology license, will the Cosmo CE hours count towards barber CE hours?
Let's wait on that. I don't really want to answer that right now, but I'll give you an example. Remember when you were renewing your instructor license, you had, the hours were the same, let's say I had a instructor license and I had a manicure license and I took my 4 hours because it was 4 hours that I needed, right? It would count for both licenses. But what was the difference with instructor? Teaching methods, remember? I had to take that, still 4 hours, but I had to take the teaching methods. I don't know if that's gonna exist when the board meets to say, here's what we want for barber. I don't know if there's gonna be something specialty, right? Still maybe under the 4 hours. Hey, you need 4 hours, but part of that 4 hours need to be this. I don't know. So I can't tell you today that it's gonna be the same. But I'm hoping that whatever comes out, you remember when you take CE, you should only take it once. It's to the person, not to the license you're holding, right? Is you taking the CE, so hopefully it's just gonna be one time, but we'll worry about that. We got to 2025. So, go ahead.
Yes, if an individual currently holds a hair weaver specialty and say they go back to school to get a Class A, with a Class A license at that time supersede the hair weaving.
With the Class A, you can do everything, so,
Right.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
There'll really be no need to hold on to
Right,
that.
so that's.
Yeah, and you can remove body hair. You heard Sean. Sean's gonna do it.
I heard you were gonna be the first. That's what I
So
heard.
guys, this is our last summit again for this first half. We went to a lot of the cities. Thank you all for being here. Thank you, everybody in the virtual. I really want to thank this panel. These folks have worked really hard for months. I'm not talking weeks, months, to try to get a solid presentation that will help you ease your mind of what's happening with the industries on this merge. I think a lot of people heard the word merge and everybody were freaked out. And I don't blame you. If you're not in the weeds looking at these rules, it's just hard to understand. You heard Derek saying not from Elisa to Lydia, who did all of the logistics. Angela and Sean, great presentation on RP for the subject matter experts of RPM. Angie and Lorraine, they're in our E&E division. They did a great job to try to help you guys understand the schools. Dee Dee and Yvonne did an awesome job of understanding the licensing piece of it. Rebecca over here, everybody knows Rebecca. She tried to put the ease and let everyone understand about the instructor, the exam piece. Eric is our inspection director, and their team is working to make those changes to make those e-inspections happen and make it more easy to read for people. It's all electronic stuff. And of course, our Dr. Esquire, Derek Burkhalter, is our attorney here, who has learned a lot about Barber and Cos by reading those rules and trying to help us have some good set of rules that will be hopefully self-explanatory. I know there's a lot of questions now, and we're gonna keep, I hope you guys attend the commission meeting, listen to it. If you have comments, sign up. Please do those comments. That will help everybody. But that's all we have, guys. Some of us will still be here. The audience, face-to-face audience, wanna ask any other last minute things, we'll be here. But everyone on the virtual, thank you guys. Hopefully we'll see you in a city near you.
Okay.